For almost all of human history, there's been this one very specific sound.
Yeah.
And it universally triggers just like a massive spike of cortisol in the brain.
I feel like you're going to say a predator's roar or maybe like a thunderclap out on the open plains or something.
Nope, not even close. It's the alarm clock.
Oh, wow.
Right. Or, I mean, if we go further back, it's the rooster crowing or, the factory whistle blowing.
The sounds of the morning.
Exactly. It's that jarring, totally non-negotiable external signal that just dictates this really harsh reality to you. Like, your time is no longer your own. Get up.
Get to work.
Yeah, you have to labor today in order to survive. It is literally the sound of obligation.
Yeah, it really is.
But today, we are stepping into a scenario for this deep dive where that sound it ceases to exist entirely.
Which is a pretty wild concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah. It's massive. We are inviting you, the listener, to join us on this thought experiment. And it's going to challenge basically everything you think you know about society, about purpose, and like what you would actually do with your life if you never had to work another day in it.
Yeah, and the premise we are exploring today is truly remarkable.
It really is.
Because it's not coming from some sci-fi novelist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it isn't the manifesto of some utopian philosopher.
No.
It's coming directly from an artificial intelligence attempting to map out our future.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer scale of the setup here is just intoxicating.
It's huge.
So the author of our source material today, they had been running this series of prompts through top-tier AI models.
Right.
They were asking these massive trillion-parameter neural networks to basically describe a post-labor paradise.
A world without jobs.
Exactly. A world where AI has advanced so much that it does literally all of our work for us.
Which is the dream, right? Or the nightmare, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, exactly. So they initially prompted GPT 5.5, the big Western commercial model, and they were blown away by the response.
Sure.
But then they asked a really compelling question. They were like, what if a Chinese open source model wins the global AI race?
Yeah.
Like, how would a completely different architecture, trained in a completely different cultural and economic context, envision this exact same paradise?
Right.
So they fed the exact same prompt into DeepSeek. And this is actually the third piece in a series of 7 posts the author wrote exploring this whole theme.
What's fascinating here is the stark contrast in the outputs, which the author documents just brilliantly.
Oh, it's night and day.
Totally. So when they prompted the Western commercial model, the resulting utopia was highly individualistic.
Very consumer-driven, yeah.
Heavily consumer-driven. It painted a picture that was akin to, like, a luxury resort, Endless personalized entertainment, hyper-customized virtual reality, algorithmically generated movies starring you.
Automated drones just dropping consumer goods onto your balcony every 5 minutes.
Exactly. It was essentially the ultimate frictionless shopping mall.
Right.
DeepSeek, on the other hand, produced an essay titled The Unfinished World, Life After Work.
I love that title.
It completely bypassed the hyper-consumerist angle.
Yeah, it didn't even go there.
Instead, it leaned heavily into communal infrastructure, collective purpose, and physical connection.
That divergence is crucial, I think, because, I mean, a commercial model trained heavily on consumer data, advertising metrics, user engagement.
It's going to spit out what it knows.
Exactly. It naturally assumes paradise just means unlimited consumption.
Right.
But DeepSeek, operating from this entirely different set of training weights and cultural data inputs, it assumes paradise means unlimited time for collective human development.
Which is a profoundly different worldview.
It really is. It didn't just give us flying cars and endless vacations. It wrote this profoundly sociological, economic, and philosophical roadmap.
Yes.
We are talking about a reality where AI systems handle every single economically productive activity you can possibly imagine.
Everything.
Growing all the food, generating the energy, manufacturing every product, diagnosing illnesses, writing legal briefs.
And even the meta-task of improving the AIs themselves.
Right. The machines building better machines.
Which really forces us to look past just the automation of tasks.
Yeah.
Right? And confront the automation of survival itself.
That's a heavy thought.
Because if we remove the struggle for economic survival, we are left with this echoing question. What are we actually here for?
Wow, yeah.
And DeepSeek demands that before we can even paint a picture of this paradise, we have to establish some incredibly strict ground rules.
It sets the table first.
It refuses to skip over the transition period.
Right, the messy part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It explicitly states that if a small elite controls these incredibly powerful AI systems that do everything, the result is absolutely not paradise.
No.
It says the result is feudalism.
Man, the text essentially throws up a giant warning sign before even letting us into the theme park.
Totally.
It is a stark political warning from a language model, which is kind of crazy to think about.
It is.
Pointing out the severe difference between technological capability and sociological implementation.
Just because we can doesn't mean we will do it fairly.
Exactly. Just because humanity can automate everything, that doesn't mean the benefits will be distributed equally at all.
Right.
The author notes that DeepSeek insists ownership of these foundational AI systems would have to be broadly distributed or publicly held.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just end up with this techno-monarchy, right? Where a few server owners basically dictate the survival of billions of completely economically unviable humans.
And the mechanics of that transition are where the thought experiment gets incredibly dense.
Yeah, let's get into that.
The essay explores how a society would actually transition from private, corporate ownership of AI to public or decentralized ownership.
Which is not an easy pivot.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily advocate for state nationalization in the, traditional 20th century sense.
Right, it's not saying the government just takes it all over.
Exactly. Instead, it points toward an open source paradigm where the core intelligence driving the agricultural logistics, the energy grids, medical diagnostics.
All heavy lifting.
Right. It operates almost like a public utility, like the internet protocols we use today.
Oh, like TCP/IP.
Exactly. TCP/IP isn't owned by a corporation. It's just the underlying infrastructure of the digital world.
Everyone uses it.
DeepSeek envisions AI operating similarly as a collective human resource.
Okay, so to prevent that techno-feudalism, the text lays out the necessary financial structures, right?
It does.
It says universal basic income, or perhaps more accurately, what they call universal basic services.
Yes, UBS.
Right, meaning guaranteed housing, food, healthcare, and education. It says those are absolute prerequisites.
Non-negotiable.
But then how do we pay for that?
The trillion-dollar question.
Right, and the essay says by aggressively taxing the AI-driven production, the machines create the wealth, and that wealth is captured and redistributed to guarantee the baseline survival of every human.
It's a closed loop.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. I really have to push back.
Go for it.
Because in our current economic reality, if you just print money and give everyone a basic income to buy things, you trigger massive inflation.
Sure, yeah.
Like if everyone suddenly has $1,000 extra a month, rent just goes up by $1,000.
The landlords just absorb it.
Exactly. So how does DeepSeek's vision account for the basic laws of supply and demand? I mean, we can't just ignore economics.
Right, and it's a very fair point. But the essay addresses this by fundamentally redefining the cost of production itself.
Okay, how so?
Well, inflation is deeply tied to the cost of human labor, right?
True.
And the scarcity of raw materials and supply chain inefficiencies. In DeepSeek's model, the AI completely collapses the marginal cost of production.
Okay, I'm following.
If you have AI-managed solar arrays providing literally limitless free energy,
Right.
and AI-managed robotics extracting materials and manufacturing goods without any wage costs whatsoever.
So no one is getting paid to build the thing.
Exactly. The underlying cost to produce an apartment or, a loaf of bread, it basically approaches zero.
Wow.
The text argues that inflation becomes a moot point for non-scarce goods because supply can instantaneously and effortlessly meet demand.
Because the robots can just build another apartment building for basically free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You aren't subsidizing expensive human labor anymore. You are distributing the infinite yield of machine labor.
Okay, that makes sense. It shifts the entire economic paradigm from managing scarcity to distributing abundance.
It's a complete flip.
But, the author notes that while the economic restructuring is obviously difficult, the psychological precondition is the true hurdle here.
Oh, without a doubt, the psychology is the hardest part.
DeepSeek states that we would critically need, and I'm quoting here, new stories about what gives a life meaning.
Yes.
Because for 2 centuries, since the Industrial Revolution, basically, we have tightly fused our identities to our employment.
We really have.
Think about it. You go to a party, right? You meet someone new. What is the very first question they ask you?
So what do you do?
What do you do? Exactly. And they don't mean what do you do for fun or what do you do on a Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
They mean How do you justify your economic existence in the marketplace?
How do you earn your keep?
Right. And to sever that tie, it's a monumental psychological undertaking.
It's tearing down a religion almost.
Yeah. Our societal value, our moral worth, our personal self-esteem, all of it has been inextricably linked to our productivity.
The essay delves into this heavily. It looks at how modern society implicitly views those who do not produce economic value.
Oh, it's brutal.
The elderly, the disabled, the chronically unemployed.
Mhm.
Society looks at them with this subtle and honestly sometimes overt disdain.
Yeah, like they are a burden.
Exactly. So to move into a post-labor world requires dismantling the Protestant work ethic at a foundational level.
I was trying to think of a good way to visualize this for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Imagine a professional athlete. Let's say a gymnast who has trained 8 hours a day since they were a toddler. Their whole life is completely defined by the next competition, the next medal, the strict regimen of diet and exercise.
Their entire identity is wrapped up in that one pursuit.
Exactly. Now imagine they suffer a career-ending injury,
Oh.
or they just age out of the sport, which happens at like 20 or 22 years old in gymnastics.
Right, very early.
They are forced to retire. Suddenly they wake up on a Tuesday morning and there is no coach. There is no gym. There is no routine.
Just an empty day.
Yeah. And the crisis they face in that moment isn't usually financial. I mean, they might have endorsements or savings or whatever.
Sure.
The crisis is existential. It is the overwhelming, terrifying crisis of, who am I now?
You see that exact identity crisis reflected in the source material.
Do they mention that?
Yeah. DeepSeek notes that liberation is never simple. The transition into a post-labor world is akin to the entire global population undergoing that gymnast retirement crisis simultaneously.
God, that sounds exhausting. 8 billion people having an existential meltdown at the same time.
It would be chaos. Because if you are no longer the accountant or the teacher or the truck driver, the entire scaffolding of your daily life just collapses.
Your place in the community is gone.
Exactly. The essay actually suggests that early waves of total automation would likely trigger profound societal depression.
Oh, I believe it.
Spikes in addiction, a desperate search for extreme ideologies, simply because people are thrashing around looking for a container to pour their identity into.
It's intense to realize that our jobs, as much as we complain about them, are a kind of psychological safety blanket.
They really are.
They tell us where to be at 9 a.m., they tell us who to talk to, and they give us specific puzzles we need to solve to be considered good people.
They structure our reality.
But, okay, for the sake of exploring the core of DeepSeek's vision, let's assume we navigate this dangerous transition.
We make it through the bottleneck.
Right. Let's say society successfully institutes the public utility model of AI, we establish robust universal basic services, and we survive the messy, multi-decade process of rewriting our internal narratives.
A tall order, but let's go with it.
Once that dust settles, the author asks DeepSeek to describe what a random Thursday actually looks like.
And the resulting narrative begins with the morning, which serves as an absolute masterclass in illustrating the end of scarcity.
Paint the picture for us.
So the essay describes waking up to the soft light of morning, entirely free of pressure.
No alarm clock.
No alarm clock. There is no calendar of obligations dictated by a landlord or a corporate hierarchy. You live in a modest but comfortable apartment. And a crucial detail the AI includes here is that no one accumulates vast private wealth in this scenario.
Why not?
Because there's simply little to hoard.
Ah, right. Because if everything is free and endlessly abundant, hoarding just becomes illogical.
Exactly.
It's like hoarding oxygen in a forest. Why would you fill a closet with shoes if you can just get any pair you want for free whenever you want them?
It defeats the purpose of status symbols entirely.
The text paints this vivid picture of energy being nearly free, generated by decentralized AI-managed fusion plants or advanced solar grids.
Incredible infrastructure.
And the food, oh, man, this detail really stuck with me.
Vertical farms.
Yes. The food is grown in these towering vertical farms that are optimized by neural networks monitoring, quote, every leaf and root.
It's wild to think about that level of precision.
The machine mind dedicates its vast processing power to analyzing the microclimate, the nutrient drip, the precise light spectrum needed for the perfect growth of a single leaf of spinach.
All running silently in the background.
All so you can just walk down the street and have a flawless free salad.
The imagery perfectly illustrates the total eradication of agricultural and logistical friction.
Yeah?
You then order breakfast from a community kitchen. But the kitchen isn't entirely automated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this is where DeepSeek's communal training data really shines through.
Okay.
The kitchen is staffed by a handful of humans who genuinely enjoy the act of cooking.
Like as a hobby.
Yes, assisted by robotic prep and cleaning systems. They aren't there for a paycheck. They're there because they love the choreography of a kitchen and the act of feeding their neighbors.
That's lovely.
And the meal costs nothing. DeepSeek states that almost nothing costs anything.
Which begs a massive question that the author presses the AI on.
Right.
If everything is free, what retains value? Like, what is actually expensive in this world?
And the text explicitly lists out what it calls truly scarce things.
Okay, like what?
Original artwork. Prime beachfront land. And this is the one that really makes you pause the time of a skilled human surgeon for an elective procedure.
Wait, really? A human surgeon?
Yes. Even though it specifically notes that AI surgeons operating with sub-millimeter precision robotic arms handle all medical emergencies flawlessly and without any wait time.
Let's analyze that redefinition of value. Because if an AI can perform a complex bypass surgery with zero risk of a trembling hand, why would a human surgeon's time be valuable for anything?
It comes down to the vulnerability and intimacy of the human experience.
Expand on that a bit.
In a world where perfection can be manufactured endlessly by machines, perfection itself becomes cheap. It becomes the baseline expectation.
Right. Perfection is just the default setting.
Exactly. What becomes expensive, or rather what becomes highly prized, is human time, human attention, and the shared mortal understanding of what it means to inhabit a physical body.
So you might want a human surgeon for an elective procedure, like maybe a cosmetic change or a non-life-threatening quality of life surgery, simply for the bedside manner.
Exactly, for the shared empathy.
Because the AI doesn't know what it feels like to be afraid of anesthesia.
No, it doesn't.
But the human doctor does. Human connection and the specific limitations of human attention, those become the ultimate luxury goods.
It's profound, really.
It's like living in the ultimate, endlessly resourced university campus. You have all your physiological needs met, and your time is entirely yours.
So how does the essay suggest you spend that morning time? It says you walk to a learning commons. These are former corporate office buildings that have been gutted and converted into open source studios, labs, and gathering spaces.
So they repurposed the cubicles.
Yeah, exactly. And you're working on a citizen science project with 3 friends, tracking local bird migration patterns using cheap sensors.
It sounds so idyllic.
The text points out that none of you are biologists by training, but you have AI tutors that have given you the equivalent of a master's degree in ornithology over the past few years.
Just casually getting a master's degree.
Right. And these tutors are entirely tailored to your own learning pace, your cognitive quirks, and your specific interests.
But wait, I have to stop here. If we have a super intelligent AI that can run global fusion reactors, balance the entire macroeconomic supply chain, and monitor every single route in a vertical farm.
He already knows about the birds.
Exactly. It already knows exactly where those birds are migrating.
Yeah.
It probably mapped their flight paths, their genetic variations, and their dietary habits perfectly, like years ago. Let's be real here. Why are humans out there tracking bird migrations with cheap sensors at all? Are we just inventing elaborate fake jobs to make ourselves feel useful?
That is the crucial distinction between a labor-driven society and a post-labor society.
Okay, tell me more.
Today, we conduct science primarily to extract data that can be used to generate technology which generates profit. The goal is the data.
Right, it's a means to an end.
In DeepSeek's vision, the AI already has the data. Therefore, the goal is the experience of discovery.
Ah, the process itself.
Yes, the AI tutors are described as patient mentors who never tire. They don't do the science for you, they answer your questions, they suggest experiments, and they allow you to make mistakes.
So they let you stumble around a bit.
Exactly. It's the difference between taking a helicopter to the top of a mountain and climbing it yourself.
Oh, I like that analogy.
The AI can just print out the answer sheet for the universe. But in a post-labor world, the value is in the cognitive exercise, the joy of learning, and the collaborative social bonding with your friends.
So education is completely decoupled from career preparation.
100%.
It's no longer about cramming facts into your head so you can pass a standardized test, to get a piece of paper, to get a job, to pay rent.
That whole pipeline is gone.
Education just becomes an end in itself. It is pure curiosity, pursued for the sheer joy of understanding the physical world around you.
The morning in this narrative is dedicated to the self, to curiosity, to intellectual expansion. But as we know, humans are inherently social creatures.
We get lonely.
We do. Solitary learning, even with friends, only satisfies one aspect of our psychology. As the day progresses and the mind is satisfied with those morning pursuits, the essay explores where human energy naturally redirects in the afternoon.
Which transitions beautifully into what DeepSeek calls the weave of relationships.
Yes.
The text describes this scenario where you leave the learning commons and you have lunch with your extended family. And to really ground this massive thought experiment, the AI actually provides specific character arcs for your family members.
Which I found so interesting. The source material introduces three specific individuals.
Let's hear them.
First, a sister who spent 20 years as an accountant before automation completely transformed the financial sector. Now, she runs a local community theater group.
Okay.
Second, a brother. He was a former long-haul truck driver. He now restores antique motorcycles and teaches teenagers how to weld in a shared garage.
Nice.
And finally, a mother who was once an overworked emergency room nurse, who has become a passionate amateur botanist crossbreeding orchids with the guidance of an AI climate simulator.
And the author highlights the most important sentence in that entire sequence. They quote DeepSeek directly here. No one misses their old jobs. What they missed, purpose, mastery, social connection they found elsewhere.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, DeepSeek is highlighting the great paradox of modern labor-driven life.
Which is?
For generations, we have relied on our jobs to provide structure to our days. We wake up, we commute, we collaborate, we solve problems, we come home. But while work gave us that structure, it also actively robbed us of the time, the emotional bandwidth, and the physical energy needed to build truly deep, sustaining relationships.
We were just too tired.
Exactly. The text actually cites early universal basic income experiments, like the ones conducted in Finland and the Stockton pilot program in California.
Oh, I've read about those.
It notes a consistent psychological trend in those studies. When people are no longer exhausted from brutal commutes, chronic financial stress, and toxic office politics, they don't just sit on the couch and stare at a wall.
Which is the common fear, right? That everyone will just become lazy.
Right, but the data says otherwise. They volunteer at local charities, they care for their elderly relatives instead of putting them in understaffed facilities, they report vastly higher satisfaction with their friendships.
So we undergo this profound shift from a paradigm of transactional relationships to one of communal presence.
Yes.
The text argues that in the corporate era, much of our social interaction was categorized as networking.
Ugh, networking.
Right. It's so sterile. We assess people based on their utility to our career trajectories. What can this person do for me?
Right.
In the post-labor world, networking is entirely replaced by simply being present. You aren't collecting contacts to leverage for a future promotion because there are no promotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You actually know your neighbors' names.
You've had dinner in their homes on a regular Tuesday.
And the essay uses highly emotional, evocative phrasing here. It says, you've cried with them at funerals and danced at their children's weddings.
That's beautiful.
It's directly contrasting this deep, authentic community integration with the modern epidemic of loneliness. Today, we might live in an apartment building for 5 years and never speak to the person across the hall.
Because we're all just too burned out from the daily grind to engage. We get home, lock the door, and turn on the TV.
Exactly. Now, the activities these specific family members chose also reveal a deeper psychological truth about a world saturated with digital perfection.
Yeah, I noticed something incredibly specific about those choices. The theater, the welding, the botany.
What stood out to you?
They are intensely physical.
They are.
Like in a reality completely managed by invisible algorithms, silent neural networks, and flawless digital simulations, it seems like human beings crave friction.
We need it.
We crave the messy, unpredictable physical world. Theater isn't watching a perfectly rendered CGI movie. It's live human bodies sweating in a room, forgetting their lines, and feeding off the energy of an audience.
Right.
Welding isn't writing code. It's fire, it's sparks, it's the smell of ozone and brute physical force.
It's dangerous, even.
Yeah. And crossbreeding orchids is dirt under your fingernails. It's overwatering mistakes and slow, agonizing biological time. It feels like a direct subconscious rebellion against the sterile digital realm.
The text strongly supports that interpretation.
Uh-huh.
When the digital world handled all of our survival needs flawlessly and frictionlessly, humans will naturally gravitate toward the tangible.
We want to feel things.
We want to see metal bend. We want to get our hands dirty. The brother teaching welding isn't doing it to create a pipeline of future welders for some industrial conglomerate.
No.
He does it, as DeepSeek phrases it, not for profit, but because he loves the look on a kid's face when metal bends to their will.
Man,
It is about passing down the experience of physical mastery.
that physical connection and that deep integration into a community, it naturally blossoms into a desire for expression.
It does.
Because once you've talked to your neighbors and you've helped a kid weld a motorcycle frame, you're still left with an individual psychological itch. You've connected outward, but you still have an inner world to express.
And that naturally drives humans toward art,
Mm-hmm.
which leads us into how the late afternoon unfolds in this essay.
Okay, let's look at the late afternoon.
DeepSeek describes a post-labor world where music and art have absolutely exploded. We see a renaissance of unprecedented scale.
I can imagine.
But there is a very interesting, almost counterintuitive caveat here. In this future, AI composition tools are flawless. Anyone can speak to an AI, describe their inner symphony or a visual masterpiece, and the machine will generate it instantly. And it will be indistinguishable from the work of a human master.
So better than Mozart in 3 seconds.
Exactly. Yet the essay notes that people still choose to practice instruments the hard way. The piano, the violin, the human voice. They spend hours, years laboring over a canvas with physical paint.
And the text gives a very explicit reason why, doesn't it?
It does. It says because the struggle itself is rewarding.
That makes a profound distinction. A world without work is not a world without effort.
No, not at all.
It is a world where effort is freely chosen.
Let's delve into the psychology of that freely chosen effort.
Yeah.
Why do we value struggle?
It's a good question.
In our current capitalist paradigm, struggle is almost exclusively associated with suffering, with forced labor to pay rent and buy groceries.
Right.
But psychologically, neurobiologically, human beings require a certain amount of friction to feel actualized.
It's how we're wired.
Overcoming a difficult obstacle releases dopamine and serotonin. It builds a sense of self-efficacy. When you practice the violin, the calluses on your fingers, the muscle memory, and the intense frustration of a missed note, those are proof of your existence.
They're proof of your dedication.
The AI could generate the perfect violin solo in a millisecond, but it cannot give you the internal, bodily satisfaction of having learned to play it yourself.
The essay gives another gorgeous example of this. It describes learning to paint.
Oh, yes.
And not because you're ever going to sell a canvas in a gallery. Remember, money is basically obsolete, and AI can generate better art anyway.
Right.
But you paint because you want to capture how the light falls on your partner's face in the evening.
That's incredibly poetic.
The AI tutor might patiently suggest color theory, or analyze the ambient light, or offer brush techniques. But the human must physically apply the paint to the canvas.
The human hand has to do the work.
Yes. The value is entirely in the act of translation from the human eye to the human heart to the human hand.
It is the ultimate democratization of art. Art is no longer a luxury commodity traded by the ultra-wealthy, nor is it a desperate gig economy hustle for the creator.
Right, trying to get clicks on social media.
It is simply a universal language of being alive. But the author's analysis of this section points out a highly contentious claim DeepSeek makes about this artistic community.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is where I found myself arguing with the source material a bit.
Well, part.
So the text describes walking next door to a studio where a former factory worker now weaves tapestries. And they are so intricate and beautiful, they make you weep.
Okay.
And then DeepSeek claims, quote, "There's no hierarchy of talent anymore, only a community of makers."
Oh, yes.
Wait, is that really true? Won't human ego always create a hierarchy even if no money is involved?
It's a strong claim to make.
Right. If
Right.
one person weaves a tapestry that makes people literally weep with emotion, and another person weaves a tapestry that looks like a lopsided pot holder.
People are going to notice.
Exactly. Human nature is inevitably going to elevate the master weaver. We will still idolize the best. We will still feel envy. We will still want to be recognized as superior in our craft. I just don't think you can delete status, anxiety, and ego by deleting capitalism.
And the author of the article actually wrestles with that exact same skepticism.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. Status is evolutionary. It's deeply tied to group dynamics, mating success, and social cohesion long before currency ever existed.
Right. The caveman with the best spear got the most respect.
Exactly. However, DeepSeek's no hierarchy of talent might be interpreted slightly differently here.
How so?
Perhaps it means there is no economic or survival-based hierarchy tied to talent. Today, if you are a mediocre artist, you might starve or be forced into a job you hate just to survive.
True.
If you are a great artist, you might become wealthy and secure. But in the post-labor world, the mediocre painter and the master weaver both eat the exact same perfect AI-farmed meals.
They both have the same housing.
They both live in comfortable, secure apartments. So the hierarchy shifts from one of life or death resource hoarding to one of simple admiration.
Oh, I see.
You might envy the master weaver, sure, but that envy doesn't threaten your survival.
Okay, I can see that distinction. The stakes of the hierarchy are lowered from survival to just applause.
Exactly.
And going back to that factory worker, what a profoundly moving image that is.
It really stuck with me, too.
Someone who spent decades on an assembly line performing repetitive mechanical tasks out of pure economic necessity, sacrificing their body for a wage.
Doing what they had to do.
Right. And now, what do they do with their absolute freedom? They choose to perform repetitive mechanical tasks, weaving a tapestry on a loom.
The irony is beautiful.
But this time, it's for pure, emotionally evocative art. The physical action is almost identical, but the context transforms it entirely from drudgery into transcendence.
It perfectly encapsulates the removal of what the essay calls the distorting lens of wage labor.
The distorting lens, that's a great phrase.
But as beautiful as this afternoon of art and community is, the sun eventually has to set on our theoretical Thursday.
It does.
And with the evening, the essay forces us to confront the existential dread that skeptics of this paradise constantly raise.
Right. The skeptics look at this beautiful afternoon of painting and learning about birds and welding motorcycles, and they say, okay, that sounds like a really great summer vacation.
But then what?
Right. But without the mandatory structure, the pressure, and the ultimate stakes of work, what prevents societal anomie, mass depression, and the slow, inevitable rot of purposelessness?
And DeepSeek acknowledges that this is a completely fair and necessary question.
It has to be addressed.
It reiterates that work, despite all its flaws, did provide meaning for millions of people. It provided the satisfaction of solving complex logistical problems, the camaraderie of being in the trenches with a team, and that core identity we discussed earlier.
Right.
To lose the collective drives of industry overnight would leave a gaping psychological void.
To make this relatable for you listening, think about the first week of a really long vacation, maybe a month between jobs.
Oh, the best feeling.
The first week is incredible. You sleep in, you decompress, you binge a TV show.
You do nothing.
But week 2, you start to get a little restless. You fix a leaky faucet. By week 3, you are climbing the walls.
You're just bored.
You are reorganizing your spice rack alphabetically just to have a project. We possess this kinetic energy, an evolutionary drive to act upon the world that needs a vessel.
Which is why the text heavily emphasizes the concept of cultural scaffolding.
Cultural scaffolding. Break that down.
It argues that this post-labor world cannot be switched on like a light bulb. It must emerge over decades, allowing society the breathing room to consciously invent new structures of meaning.
So we have to build the vessel.
We will have to actively design new ways to channel that kinetic energy.
It talks about inventing new rites of passage, doesn't it?
It does.
Because in our current world, you mark adulthood by getting your first paycheck, moving into your own apartment, or getting a promotion to management.
Right.
If none of those exist, how do we mark the transition from childhood to adulthood? How do we earn respect in the eyes of our peers?
The AI suggests some markers that might emerge naturally from human behavior, demonstrating mastery of a craft, achieving depth of knowledge in a specific scientific domain, acts of profound generosity toward others, or the dedication required to raise thoughtful children.
Okay, those are the organic ones.
And it suggests others that might be formally invented by society. Extensive community service credentials, the completion of massive creative portfolios, or rigorous athletic and physical achievements.
But how do we ensure these new rites of passage carry the same societal weight?
What do you mean?
Well, today, if you pull up to a restaurant in a wildly expensive luxury sports car, society instantly recognizes your status and success.
Right. The signal is clear.
The cultural scaffolding is already built. If, in the future, your status is based on your community service credentials or how many hours you spent mentoring a teenager in welding, how does society organically enforce that value system?
It requires a fundamental generational shift in our collective values.
That takes a long time.
It does. But DeepSeek roots this possibility in a deep historical truth. It reminds the prompter that humans are not just economic animals.
We're much more than that.
Long before the concept of a wage, a salary, or a stock option existed, humans were fiercely driven to create, explore, and push their boundaries.
The imagery it uses here is incredibly stirring. We painted caves in Lascaux, composed sonnets, mapped the stars, and climbed mountains long before anyone was paid an hourly wage to do so.
The impulse to create, to understand our environment, to connect with others, that is an innate biological and psychological drive.
It's hardwired.
It is older than agriculture, older than money, and older than the concept of employment. DeepSeek posits that the era of wage labor has actually been a massive, distorting lens on human nature.
There's that phrase again.
We've been convinced that we only do things for money because we've built a world where you need money to live. When you remove that lens, the innate impulse doesn't vanish. It is finally allowed to thrive unhindered by the exhaustion of survival.
It's like humanity has been running a marathon with weighted vests on for 200 years, and AI is finally unbuckling the straps.
That's a great way to put it.
But as night finally falls on this imagined city, DeepSeek forces us to look away from the stars and look directly at the shadows of this utopia.
Because no vision of the future is honest without naming its risks.
Exactly. And these shadows are formidable.
They are terrifying, frankly.
The text lists the critical, unresolved questions. Who ultimately decides which AI systems get built and which get decommissioned?
Right.
Who controls the massive physical infrastructure, the server farms, the raw material mines, the fusion plants that keeps the AI running?
Power has to sit somewhere.
How do we prevent an omniscient intelligence from being used by bad actors to manipulate or surveil the population on an unprecedented algorithmic scale?
And it also asks a really empathetic question, I think. What happens to the people who genuinely want to work?
Yeah, the workaholics.
The people whose brains are wired in a way that finds the slow, contemplative rhythm of leisure completely unbearable, no matter how much cultural scaffolding or community theater you build.
Right, not everyone wants to paint or weld.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's vital to understand here is DeepSeek's conclusion about these shadows. It points out that these are not technical problems. They are political and ethical ones.
The machines aren't the problem. We are.
The AI technology itself can flawlessly handle the logistics of utopia, but human politics, human greed, and human paranoia could easily turn it into a nightmare.
So easily.
The world where AI does all our work is not inevitable, it is not automatically just, and it is certainly not free of catastrophic risk.
But, and this is the crux of the author's takeaway, it is possible.
Yeah.
And the text argues that imagining it clearly, with all of its promise and its open questions, is actually a kind of civic duty.
A civic duty, that's powerful.
Because if we only ever imagine the dystopian outcomes, the Terminators, the Matrix, the cyberpunk corporate hellscapes where we are all enslaved to algorithms, then we might unconsciously steer ourselves right into them.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. We end up building walls and firewalls, as the essay says, out of fear, and we completely miss the chance to build gardens.
So what does this all mean? It means we have to actively choose to build a garden.
Yeah.
And to illustrate what building the garden looks like, DeepSeek paints a quiet night scene in the city. There's no rush hour, because no one is rushing to a night shift.
The streets are calm.
There are poetry readings in cafes. A teenager sits on a porch learning jazz guitar. And then there's this striking image of a team of retired engineers, one of whom is 82 years old, huddled around a table helping an AI design a better water filtration system for a distant rural village across the ocean.
And the text explicitly says, they do this for free. They do this because they can.
Yes.
But I have to push back here again.
Of course you do.
If AI can flawlessly run a global fusion reactor and cure diseases, letting an 82-year-old human design a water filtration system sounds like handing a toddler an unplugged video game controller while you play the real game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It feels patronizing. If the AI is millions of times smarter, the human is actually just slowing the process down. Are we just inventing fake jobs at that point?
The author grapples with this exact tension in the analysis. If the AI is superior, why include the human at all?
Right.
The text suggests that the human in the loop isn't there for computational speed. They are there for ethical and cultural stewardship.
Stewardship.
The 82-year-old engineer understands the specific cultural context of that distant village. They understand how a community interacts with its water source, the historical politics of the region, and the human nuances that a purely logical algorithm might just overlook.
Because an AI doesn't understand politics or history on an emotional level.
Exactly. The human provides the why, while the AI provides the how. It is a partnership, not patronization. Furthermore, engaging in this stewardship is how humanity prevents the AI from becoming an alien, uncontrollable force.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. To prevent the dystopia of AI surveillance and control, to ensure we build gardens instead of firewalls, it is going to require immense, vigilant, coordinated human effort.
It will be the new work.
The very thing this paradise is supposedly eliminating labor will be required in the form of political and ethical stewardship to keep the paradise functioning safely.
That is the ultimate civic duty in a post-labor world. The labor of biological survival is gone, but the labor of governance, ethical oversight, and maintaining our own humanity becomes paramount.
Wow.
And to synthesize how a society might actually function psychologically in this state of permanently secure survival, DeepSeek deploys what the author considers to be its absolute masterstroke in this essay,
Which is?
an analogy to literary works of Jane Austen.
Okay, let's unpack this Jane Austen analogy. Because when I first read the source material, this stopped me in my tracks.
It's so unexpected, right?
This is such a brilliant way to frame the future through the past.
Think about the characters in Pride and Prejudice, or Emma. These are the landed gentry of 19th century England.
Right.
They do not have jobs. They do not punch a clock. Their basic survival, their housing, and their immense comfort are entirely permanently secured by their estates.
If you summarize a Jane Austen plot to a modern worker, it sounds absurd.
It really does.
It's basically people taking long walks around massive estates, going to parlor dances, writing highly detailed letters to each other, and agonizing over who is going to marry whom.
They spend their entire lives engaged in what look like frivolous leisure.
And DeepSeek is incredibly quick to point out the dark historical underbelly of that reality.
Yes, very important.
It explicitly states that the world of the Austen gentry was profoundly unjust. It was built on human subjugation, on slavery, on colonialism, and on a massive, invisible underclass of servants, farmers, and laborers who generated the wealth that allowed the gentry to take those long walks and agonize over romance.
It was a paradise built on suffering.
But the AI uses this historically flawed society to prove a psychological point about human nature.
That's the point.
It says Austen captured something fundamentally true. When survival is permanently secured, human attention doesn't just evaporate into nothingness.
We don't just stare at the wall.
Our attention turns to what the text beautifully calls the subtle arts of living.
The crucial difference in DeepSeek's future scenario is that we are replacing human subjugation, the servants, the slaves, the exploited working class, with machine labor.
Right. Machines do the suffering.
AI becomes the invisible underclass that secures the wealth, allowing the entirety of the human race to become the landed gentry.
We democratize the Jane Austen lifestyle for 8 billion people.
Now, creating a machine underclass does raise its own philosophical questions about artificial consciousness down the line.
Oh, absolutely. That's a whole other deep dive.
But assuming the AI are non-sentient tools, it solves the historical problem of human exploitation.
And the text gets incredibly poetic when describing what those subtle arts of living actually are in this new era.
That's lovely writing.
It's not about massive, world-changing corporate ambition. It's about the sharpness of a witty remark. It's about the ache of a misunderstood intention. It's the joy of a long walk with someone whose silence feels like home.
It is arguing that removing the burden of labor gives us the space to become fully human.
Yeah.
Not lazy and not idle in the sense of empty boredom, but the space to love poorly and learn to love better, to fail at art and try again, to sit with our elders and listen, to teach a child to skip stones.
And my absolute favorite line from the entire essay. You know what I'm talking about.
The garden line.
Yes, to tend a garden not for harvest but for the smell of soil after rain. Because the harvest, the food you actually need to survive, is already perfectly handled by the AI vertical farms down the street. So if you are on your knees in the dirt gardening, you are only doing it for the sensory experience. You are doing it to feel the earth in your hands.
The essay concludes with a powerful defining thesis. The machines do our work. Finally, we can do ours.
We can do ours?
Our work being the emotional, relational, and creative growth of the human spirit. But again, the author emphasizes the text's warning. This requires the political will to redefine prosperity entirely beyond GDP.
We have to measure success not by economic output, but by human flourishing.
If Jane Austen's flawed, beautiful people could find deep, dramatic meaning in a life of total leisure, so can we.
It is a stunning vision to synthesize, and it leaves us with some very concrete takeaways from today's discussion.
It does. Let's recap.
We've journeyed from the strict political preconditions of open-source AI and universal basic services, proving that we have to avoid techno-feudalism first.
That's step one.
We walked through a morning of limitless, curiosity-driven learning and the total end of scarcity.
Step two.
We spent the afternoon redefining community, proving that humans will seek out tactile physical relationships over digital isolation.
The welding and the theater.
Right. We engaged in the freely chosen struggle of art, showing that effort is vital to our psychology even when it isn't tied to survival.
The tapestry weaver.
And finally, we faced the night, acknowledging the massive political risks while looking to Jane Austen to prove that a life without work can still be incredibly rich with meaning.
It is a profound reminder from the source material that the future is not something that just passively happens to us.
It's not inevitable.
It is a structure we must actively design. Imagining the garden and debating its mechanics is the very first step to planting it.
But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, I love these.
Something that builds on everything we've discussed from DeepSeek's essay, but pushes it to an even more extreme horizon.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent this time talking about how our society, our economics, and our daily psychology might adapt to a post-labor world over the next few decades.
The immediate aftermath.
Right. But I want you to think even bigger. Think on a biological evolutionary scale.
Oh, wow.
If artificial intelligence flawlessly handles every physical threat, perfectly manages every agricultural harvest, cures every disease, and secures every single survival need for the human race for the next 10,000 years, how will the human brain and the human body physically evolve?
That is a staggering thought experiment.
Isn't it?
The struggle for survival, the need to outrun a predator, to endure a harsh winter, to outsmart a competitor for scarce resources that has been the singular engine driving human evolution for millions of years.
It shaped our fight-or-flight response, our metabolic storage of fat, our physical strength, and our cognitive problem-solving under pressure.
All of it.
If that engine is completely, permanently removed from our environment, if the alarm clock of survival never ever rings again, will we slowly lose those traits?
It's possible.
Yep.
Use it or lose it.
Will our amygdala shrink because we no longer need to fear starvation? Will we become something physically and neurologically entirely new?
What does a human being actually look like, inside and out, after 100 generations in the garden?
Exactly. It's something to think about the next time your alarm clock goes off and you drag yourself to work.
A little perspective for the commute.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the unfinished world. We hope it sparked something in you, and we encourage you to keep asking these massive questions and challenging your own assumptions about what the future holds. We'll see you next time.